Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Molly Saves the Day. Chapter 3, Creepy Crawlies. They don't have to be real worms, she just has to think they're real worms, said Molly. She and Susan were crawling in the dirt underneath the wooden platform beneath their tent. They were digging with cups from their mess kits to find worms. We used bugs and spiders too. I saw lots of them under here last week during camp cleanup. And get sticks and stems like this, see? Molly held up a stem. It was brown and slimy enough to look like a worm. Ugh, squirmed Susan. I don't like this plan. I think it's mean. Molly sighed. Do you have another idea? She asked. No, said Susan, but I don't see why you have to do something so mean to Linda. She's our best friend. We're not doing it to Linda, said Molly. We're doing it to the Red Army. You can't think of people as people during a war. You have to think of them as part of an army. Well, Susan began. Look, said Molly sharply, Linda sure wasn't thinking of us as her friends when she blew the whistle on us, was she? No, admitted Susan. So we shouldn't think of her as our friend, Linda. We should think of her as the guard for the Red Army. She's got our whole army in her prison. We have to get them free, or we won't even have a chance to capture the flag and win the color war. That's why we have to do this, said Molly. This was Molly's plan. It depended on worms. Molly and Susan grabbed in the dirt on their hands and knees. Molly's shirt stuck to her back. Susan's face was red and sweaty. I sweat so much that I'm wetter than I was when I fell in the lake, complained Susan. Well, we better stop, said Molly. Her hands were getting grimy. Susan held up an old tin can. It was only half full of worms and bugs and stems. There's not very much stuff in here, she said. There's not very much time, said Molly. We'll have to go now. Okay, said Susan. She and Molly wiggled like worms themselves to get out under the tent. The sky was white hot as they plodded back to the boathouse. Molly flushed back the canoe in the water. She started to get in the back. Susan said, No, sir, I'm not getting in the front again. That's the tippiest part. No, it isn't, said Molly. Susan was stubborn. I'm not getting in the front of the canoe, and that's final. Do you want to tip over like last time? Molly remembered her plunge into the water. All right, she said. I'll get in the front, but I won't be able to help you paddle. The Red Scout has to think there's only one of us in the canoe, or she might guess the plan. Well, you lie down, said Susan. The scout won't be able to see you. So Molly lay down on the bottom of the canoe next to the extra paddle, and Susan pushed off. With Susan's paddling, the canoe jerked forward like a darting fish. It rolled down from side to side, but did not move. Soon Susan said, That's the Red Scout. She sees me. Just keep paddling, hissed Molly. They were not far from the island. The canoe zigzagged, sometimes heading away from the island, then heading straight for it. Susan, said Molly, you're supposed to switch your paddle from side to side every few strokes so the canoe will be in a line. I can't do it that way, said Susan shortly. I'm doing it the only way I know how. Maybe that's good, said Molly. It will confuse the Red Scout. She won't be able to figure out what you're trying to do. Now, head for that hidden landing place we found last time. In a surprisingly short time, they got to the landing place where they found when the canoe tipped over. Susan banged the canoe on the rocks, but she managed to get in the narrow space. Molly sat up. Okay, she said, give me your paddle. Here are the worms. The plan was for Molly to paddle the canoe around the beach. Susan would climb around the edge of the island to the prison and free the rest of the Blue Army. Then she would swim out to Molly and the canoe. But Susan held on to the paddle. Listen, she said, the Red Scout just saw me paddling across the lake. Won't you think it's funny if she sees you paddling around to the beach? I think I should stay with the canoe and you should do the worm prisoner part. But that means you have to handle the canoe all by yourself, said Molly. Are you sure you can do that? Susan shrugged. I don't know, she said. I got this far, but maybe I can do the rest. Anyway, I'll try. Molly looked at Susan. You're pretty brave. You have the hard part, said Susan. You might get caught by the Red Army. No, said Molly with a grin. I figured they'll be so busy watching the way you paddle a canoe, they won't notice me. Susan smiled. Good luck, she said. As Molly scrambled up to the rock, Susan backed the canoe into the lake. Molly moved as quickly as she could, staying very close to the water. For a while, she could see Susan's canoe moving offshore. Then the canoe disappeared around a point of land, and Molly couldn't see it anymore. Molly crept around the shore toward the prison. She kept a sharp lookout for the Red Army. Suddenly, Molly stopped. Here was a surprise. The path was gone. She was standing at the edge of an inlet that cut in the shore of Chocolate Drop Island. Molly could see the prison on the other side of the inlet. Why wasn't this inlet on Dorinda's map? Molly asked herself. The water looked deep. Well, she thought, maybe I'll just have to swim to get to the prison. There's no other way. She put the can of worms down her undershirt and tucked her shirt tightly into her shorts. Then she waded into the water. When it reached her shoulders, Molly dog paddled quietly as she could, keeping her head well above the water. When she was halfway across, she stopped. Oh no, she thought, Linda. Linda was walking through the bushes beside the prison. She was coming right towards Molly. Linda's whistle glistened in the sun. Molly held her breath. It was as if they would make her invisible. If Linda sees me, I'm done for, she thought. The whole Blue Army is done for. There was no place to hide in the middle of the water. There was nowhere to go but down, thought Molly. I'll have to swim underwater. Molly shuddered. I can't make myself do it, she thought. But Linda was coming closer and closer and closer. Quickly, Molly took a deep breath and slid down beneath the surface. The water swallowed her. She forced herself to open her eyes. Rainy gold sunlight filtered through the water. Plants writhed like snakes next to her. Maybe if I move, it won't be so bad, Molly thought. She fluttered her legs and pulled down her arms. The can of worms was cold against her skin. Finally, she couldn't hold her breath any longer. She bowed for air. Thank goodness, Linda had turned her back. The sun was moving away from Molly, watching something out in the big lake off the opposite end of the beach. It was Susan, waving her paddle around, slapping it against the water, calling, Yoo-hoo, yoo-hoo. The Red Army girls were all watching Susan. They buzzed like confused bees. Get the canoes. We're going to take her prisoner, one girl yelled. No, she's coming ashore, yelled another. Susan kept them guessing. She zigged toward the land 1 second, then zagged out of the deeper water the next second, but all the while she was leading the girls farther and farther down the beach, farther away from prison. Only Linda stayed near it, staying guard. Molly scuttled out of the inlet like a crab, keeping an eye on Linda the whole time. She hid between a brush while she caught her breath, but there was no time to wait. She pulled the lid off the can, then sneaked off into the prison. When Linda's back was turned, Molly dashed up behind her and yelled, Worms! She dumped the stuff on Linda's head. Spiders and stems went down the back of Linda's shirt. Sticks and bugs fell on her face. Worms were caught in her hair. Arg! Linda howled. Help! She crawled at her hair, trying to pull the worms off. She jumped up and down wildly. Then she turned and saw Molly. You? She cried. Molly for pride. She was supposed to tag Linda and take her prisoner. She couldn't do it. This was Linda, her friend. She didn't look like the fierce Red Army guard anymore. She was plain old Linda. And she looked like she was going to cry. Molly ran away. She pushed her team toward to her prisoners. Blue Army, you're free, she yelled as she tagged them. Follow me, hurry up. With a great cheer, the Blue Army stampeded out of the prison. Linda didn't stop anyone. She was still pulling worms out of her hair. The Blue Army grabbed their canoes in the lake, jumped in and paddled furiously, turning the water white. Some girls swam next to the canoes as their buddies paddled, and the others had tried a leg up on the side of their canoes, trying to climb upward. When the Red Army girls saw what was happening, they ran crazily in all directions. Some headed up the hill to protect the flags, some ran across the beach toward the prison, some went to their canoes to try and chase the army. They were shouting, stumbling, and bumbling into each other. Susan paddled her canoe toward Molly, close to shore. Molly swam as fast as she could to their canoe. Get in, cried Susan. Molly pulled herself in the canoe. Carefully, Susan leaned to the outside to balance Molly's weight. When she was safe on the shore, Molly turned back to look at the beach. Linda was standing all alone, her hands hung down by her side. She wasn't even trying to blow her whistle. Molly made herself turn halfway. She picked up her paddle and followed the rest of the Blue Army back to camp. The war wasn't over yet, but Molly felt as if she had lost something very important. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.